Hey guys, what's up? It's Second Road, and today I'm gonna show you how I make my guitars in my tracks because almost all of my guitars are custom made within VSTs, to be precise, within Contact. And basically, I'm using two different types of guitars. On one hand, you have like the whole session guitarist libraries in Contact from Native Instruments. They all kind of have the same UI and similar controls. So you have these on one side. And we have third party guitars from like Spitfire and other third party companies. And I'm gonna run you through how I use both today. Disclaimer, I really am not a guitarist at all. I don't know how to play a real guitar well. That's also why I'm doing them within VSTs and libraries. So I don't really have a lot of know-how. I just kind of tweak and try stuff out within the VSTs to get like a close enough guitar sound. If you have some more tips and tricks, feel free to leave them in the comments. And for the first guitar, we are starting with a Spitfire guitar. It's the MG soft acoustic guitar, to be precise. I will just play this little arrangement I did, and we'll play the guitar in isolation. And after that, we'll go over how, in particular, this guitar was made. So let's have a listen. All right, and let's listen to it in isolation. All right, awesome. So I have loaded in a new instance of the guitar. So basically, this is the MG soft acoustic guitar. It's from Spitfire. I picked it up like I think a week or 2 weeks ago, and it does have a lot of awesome sounds. And it basically has three modes to play with. So you have the note mode, the chord mode, and the sequencer mode. The note mode is basically just free play. You can like play your chords and you basically can play all notes freely without any kind of arrangement. You can just do some normal MIDI stuff with it. You have different modes in it: auto mode, free mode, and manual mode. So the auto mode basically just it basically tries to emulate how a real guitar would be played. So, for example, you can't play the D string two times at the same time. You know, it's just it's physically not possible to play the same string 2 or 3 times at the same time. At least not that I'm aware of. Basically, this is just the free mode, but the more important mode, in my opinion, is the chord mode. This is basically your strumming mode. How it works is you have this little chord window down here, and it basically, whenever you select a chord, let's for example go for a C major, you can see it selects the C major chord for you. And even though I played on my MIDI keyboard, there's no sound coming out. That is because you have these two strumming nodes. Strum down, and you have strum up. So how this guitar works is you have it in the auto mode for voicing. This way it tries to figure out how to play your chords in also context, and tries to play it like a real guitar would play it. So you, for example, select the C major chord and then, oops, my bad. Yeah. So basically, you just select the chord and then you can play an up or a down strum. But I am not using the auto mode for this one because I just don't know enough about the guitars to properly use the mode. So instead, we're using manual mode. What manual mode does is it basically takes away the restrictions of the real physical guitar. This means you can play multiple notes on the same string, and you can play like totally random finger positions on the fretboard. So you basically have no restrictions. Usually, I'd argue the auto mode is definitely better for authenticity, but personally, I'd say probably 99.9% would never of listeners would never see a difference between auto mode and manual mode and couldn't hear it out, and they probably don't know that it wouldn't even be physically possible. So I'm leaving it on manual mode. In manual mode, this way you can just play whatever the fuck you want, whatever chords. For example, let's go for something like this. Yeah. So basically, this is the basic setup. Let's take the chords that I made. So you have your usual chords. Let's put them on beat over here. You have like your completely normal chord progression. Oops, it's like this. It's like very, very normal. They're very basic, very normal chords that you can just put into your piano roll. And as you can hear, if I try to play them, there's no sound coming out. As I said, you only set up a chord with a MIDI. And what does the playing for you are the strum notes. Those down here. It's the G and the A in FL Studio, G2 and A2. If I now press that, you can hear it's doing the strums. So at this point, the guitar library basically does almost all of the work for you. You just have to figure out a rhythm and how you want to express and in what kind of velocity you want to have the strums. So basically, I'm setting up the chord and then I'm doing like a down strum, up strum, down strum to have this kind of natural motion of moving up and down on the strings as a guitarist. I don't know if guitarists do this all the time, but I think it kind of sounds natural in this context. So playing this, you can hear it. So it does a down strum and an up strum, down strum, down strum, up strum, and it's just alternating between a down and an up strum, just so you always have this kind of hand motion within the sound. I don't know if it makes sense. I hope it makes sense. So you have multiple chord release modes. You have squeaks, blocks, open strings, and lettering. So I usually leave it on squeaks. What this does is whenever the chord is released or a new chord is picked up, it does a squeak sound, like moving your hand on the fretboard or like the strings squeaking, which gives it this really authentic kind of guitar sound. It makes it sound like someone is actually playing the guitar and is also adding some kind of human element and human error to it, I'd say. So when you put it on squeaks, it sounds like this. You can hear all these kind of little squeaks and moves on the fretboard, and this is really, really important in my opinion to make a guitar sound authentic. So this is almost everything about it. What I did for this guitar in particular, as you can see, I've used two instances. Why is that? So basically, I wanted to go for like a wide double guitar recording style. Usually, if you record a real guitar, you do like 2 recordings, so you don't have like the exact same recording, and then you pan them to the left and to the right, and this creates like a huge stereo effect. And I basically did the same thing with these guitars because you have like the humanize and the strum option. If you increase the strum option, it takes longer to strum a chord, obviously. And you have the humanize, which just adds some random time between each string getting played of a chord. So, and if you combine this with a second library, oops, and you just change up the strum speed and the humanize, you basically get different results on both guitars. So you don't have the same guitar playing, the same guitar recording, but it's very close. And if you pan those to the left and to the right, you get like a huge stereo effect, as you can hear. Yeah. And let's go over the effects I put on top. So basically, it depends on the style you want to go for. But an acoustic guitar, for example, should usually not get too many FX because you want to preserve this raw acoustic sound to make it sound natural and human. So what I did in this case is I used a compressor, and it's set with a very long attack and a short release. Why? Because if you set up a compressor like this, it doesn't catch your transients. This means the transients of the guitar can go through without getting catched by the compression, and everything after that is kind of flattened and evened out by the compression. Let's listen to it. As you can hear, the tail of the guitar is getting a little bit more even with the compression. And that is kind of what I also wanted to achieve with this one without catching the transients, so the guitar stays pretty dynamic, which is pretty important in my opinion. Then you have like a very basic EQ, if it's looking kinda weird, but basically what I'm doing is just getting rid of some mud within the low mids and increasing the highs a lot just to give the guitars a more crisp sound. Yeah, and after that, this is a fab filter. All it does is take out the lower mids and the lows within the side area of the sound, just so you don't have a lot of stereo mud in the low mids and in the low end. Yeah, and then this guitar just goes to a Zen channel with some delay and reverb on, nothing special, and that's already it. It's like it's a pretty simple guitar to use, and it has a lot of power, and I think it sounds great. Yeah, so let's go over the contact guitars now, the session guitarist guitars, which I usually use for like finger picking and stuff. Alright, now for the second part of the tutorial, now we are gonna take a look at Session Guitarist from Native Instruments. In case you don't know the series of guitars, it's a lot of different guitar libraries made by Native Instruments. They always are called like Session Guitarist. In this case, it's a picked acoustic. They have electric guitars, they have acoustic guitars. I think they even have bass guitars. And they pretty much they're all behaving kind of the same. So they have the same layout, the same UI, and also the same-ish kind of controls. So if you've ever seen a session guitarist guitar, you basically know how it works and stuff. So I usually use session guitarist guitars exclusively for fingerpicking, and this is also what I did in this track. And in this track I tried to recreate the guitar from Shockline's track Feel Better. Alright, so let's just take a listen to the finished guitar first, and then we'll go into all the details. Okay, so that's the guitar we are gonna take a look at, and the guitar melody. So let's start with the UI. So this is basically your front page of the picked acoustic. You have two different modes within the picked acoustic. You have a melody mode and a pattern mode. In this case, we're using a melody mode because in a melody mode you can just use all the notes freely. As you can see, you can just play whatever notes you want and put them in the piano roll. So in this case, we have the guitar set to open, so we just have open strings playing. We also have muted, which obviously plays muted strings, but we keep it on open. Then you have you can choose between plectrum or fingerstyle. Plectrum tends to have more transients and more high end, as you can hear, and the finger picking is kind of more soft. Most of the time I personally prefer finger picking for the finger picking guitars, obviously, because it has a softer and more human sound to it. So let's go over the MIDI, which is by far the most important aspect of the guitar. So let's start with this basic MIDI. Okay, so in my opinion, one of the most important aspects about getting your fingerpicking guitar right within MIDI is getting the rhythm right. I don't really have any kind of formula to it or like any general tips. I just advise you to try to remake some guitars of artists you like in Illenium, Griffin, whatever you like, whatever track you like. Just try to remake the finger picking and the notes within your MIDI and get the rhythm right. In this case, it is a pretty even rhythm, as you can see. It's always leaving like it's 2/16 of a bar leaving between every note. Okay, this already sounds pretty good, but we can take it up a notch. And here, what comes into play is basically these notes. These are basically kind of up and down strum kind of sounds. Let's check out how they work. Alright, let's check out the notes. You have down strum and you have an up strum. Basically, it's trying to imitate the sound your hand would be creating on the fretboard if you move between notes and chords. So let's see how you can use these. Let's just lay out a chord. Maybe let's just lay out C major, and the C major goes into a G major. It sounds like this. Okay, it doesn't sound too bad, but also doesn't really sound realistic. So what we can do is, since we are going down from a C to a G, we can do like an up. We can do like a down strum fret noise kind of thing. So how do you use this? If you just put it into the piano roll like this, let's make it even. Let's put it here. it ends your chord and basically kind of pitch bends your chords down or up. This obviously depends on if you're doing an up or a down strum. So as it ends your chords, and you basically want to emulate the sound of your fingers grabbing the new notes, you want to usually, obviously, do it at the end of a chord. Let's listen to it. And it's already sounding way more authentic in my opinion. Okay, so what you can do with these notes now is you can velocity control them. What that does is the higher the velocity, the faster this drum is. As you can hear, if you max it out, it's very, very fast. So maybe we can even like make the MIDI a bit smaller. As you can hear, in my opinion, it adds a lot of human touch to the sound. Because now it sounds way more authentic, as if an actual human is playing a guitar. Let's maybe do a full chord progression. We go to like an A, I think it's is it a minor? Yeah, it's a minor. Go to an A, and then we go to an F. I think it's an F major, okay. So now we can do this for every chord. And we just use the strum note at the end of every chord to make it sound like we are actually changing chords on the fretboard. So we have this down strum, so we go for down strum, so an A. Then we go from the G to an A, so we go up, so we use the G sharp. Maybe in this case, to give it some variation, we decrease the velocity, so the switch to the next chord is a bit longer. After that, we'll go back down from the A to the F. So now we're using a down strum again with the A. After that, we will loop from the F back up to the C. So we'll do an up strum again. Maybe a long one in this case. Very like this and this. Let's listen to it. Yeah, my opinion already sounds way better. Let's do it before and after. Right, these are the kind of small details you really want within your guitar sounds to make it sound as authentic as possible. Now, let's go back to the actual original sound. And I'll show you how you can turn it up even more. So let's listen to it again. So what I did in this case is I used 3 of the same contact instances. This is 3 times the same guitar. I did this to give like the bass line and the notes above and the notes above these their own respective instruments. So you can pitch bend and up and down strum them individually. So let's listen to the bass line, for example. Let's go to the next note. And to the note above. Alright. As you can see, I'm not doing any up and down strums on the fretboard if I'm playing the same note over and over. Obviously, because in this case, you wouldn't change up your hand position, so there's like no noise on the fretboard. just to keep it consistent with an actual guitar. However, by doing 3 different contact instances and assigning one note line to each of them, I can do some nice bends and some nicer strums to each individual melody line, which in my opinion gives it more realistic sound. In this case, listen again. I'm basically trying to emulate some kind of pitch bends in the upper region with this one and this one playing. Yeah, and I'm just doing this for every single melody line, as you can see. Doing some bends up and down and not doing bends whenever I play just the same note over and over. And if you just put all of these together, you have a lot of like squeaks and moving noises in your guitar at the right times, which in my opinion gives it a lot of human touch. Okay, so the last step at this point would be going over the FX. So let's check them out, what I did in this case. Okay, as you can see, I even turned all of the FX off. Let's go through all the FX individually. Let's remove this one. Okay, so at first I have a glue. Basically just trying to even out the dynamics of the guitar. If possible, personally, I'm trying to not compress my acoustic guitars too much to still give them this kind of natural sounding dynamic range. Then I have this EQ, just getting rid of some low end and some unwanted noises in this case. Next up, we have a filter. This filter doesn't actually serve a purpose, it's just for the arrangement. It doesn't have a mixing purpose in this case. Then I have a Saturn. It's put on the warm tape, and I've just gave it a bit of drive to add some warmth to the sound. And at the end, I'm using a soothe. Just to automatically get rid of some of the harsher frequencies and resonances. And all of this then just goes into a reverb send. In this case, it's a vintage verb from Valhalla. And that is everything about it. It's actually pretty simple, in my opinion, to create these kind of guitars. It just needs a bit of practice and just some trying around, but the overall control is pretty easy, and yeah, you get the point. I really hope this tutorial helped you in some kind of way. I'm pretty certain I said a lot of stupid shit that might not be 100% right, so please take everything I said with a grain of salt. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. If you have any tips or anything I could do better, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching and see you next time.